Don't forget to turn the camera. Hi everyone, welcome back to Canada Top to Bottom. Something a bit different today. We are live, isn't the world crazy, in our studio. We're doing this through a laptop, so we don't have the usual sound quality, usual video quality, but hopefully you can still hear us okay. And if there's anyone watching, God, this is weird. Hi, and put any questions in the live chat. So what we wanted to talk about today is the fact that it's our 100th video. I can't believe we've produced 100 videos. Feeling pretty proud of that. Most of the scripts, of course, written by Sharon, and much of the editing done by me, Charlie. And I thought for our 100th video, we could talk you through our journey to immigrating to Canada. We live in Kelowna in BC now, and we've been thinking about it and planning it for an awfully long time.
What is it, 3 years-ish?
Really should have discussed this beforehand, because I was going to say it started in 2015.
Well, we started thinking about it in 2015, but we didn't seriously do anything about it until, what, 19?
Yeah, I guess so. So to give a little context, we came in 2015. We came for a month, and some friends were getting married in Montana. And we flew into Calgary. We rented a car, and we drove down through Alberta. We went to what was the monument called? Smashed in Buffalo Head jump. Head smashed in.
Yeah, head
Something
smashed
like
in
that.
Buffalo jump.
If you go on Google, you'll find it. So we went there. We drove down into Montana, and over the course of a month, we just had the most amazing month. It's just pre-kids. We drove around and we went to Yellowstone, Tetons. We went to Salt Lake, Antelope Island.
Back up here through the border, went to various hot
Glacier
springs.
National Park. Where else did we end up? Canmore. Went for dinner in Canmore and Banff. And
had the best time.
Oh, it was amazing. And we thought, wow, you know, they speak English. There's loads to do. There's lots of space.
Yeah.
There's lots of opportunity. We should just live there. And then I was over in the States every year for work, and you used to come over generally because my ticket was only paid by my work, so Sharon would join me. And we kind of began checking out. We started in America, really, didn't we?
Started in America, then thought, we prefer Canada.
Trump had a lot to do with that. Definitely thought I was going north of the border once Trump got in.
Tried Seattle.
Tried
Seattle.
Denver.
And then decided actually maybe Canada's more to our taste.
Yeah, I'm self-employed, and the US, you have to pay for your own healthcare, and depending, you either pay a lot of money or you can be left without healthcare, and just felt a little risky, didn't it? I think we got fixed on Canada.
Well, also America, you can't just get a visa.
No, it's harder to get into America.
You have to be sponsored, or you have to get a job, or blah blah blah. But Canada, you can be a skilled worker and just move to Canada, provided you've got all the right amount of points and you know, etc. You can move to Canada as an average person. But America's much more difficult. So we kind of settled on Canada, and then said, right, where in Canada? And we thought, right, we need mountains, we need outdoor lifestyle, we need adventure. We
need a climate we can live in. Rules out a lot of Canada. Can't be dealing with a 7-month winter.
No, or minus 40 temperatures. So we thought, right, BC, okay, yeah, BC, good climate. Where do we live in BC? Vancouver. Oh, it's really big. It's really expensive. It rains all the time. We thought, I think we actually thought about Canada, Vancouver, Canada, and then kind of got rid of that idea for a while.
And then went back to America.
And then came back to it. Like, this was over the course of a few years, I think. And then finally settled on, there's a place called Kelowna that we think looks pretty good.
I actually found, sorry to interrupt, I actually found it on Google. Because I thought, well, we don't want to live in Vancouver because it's super expensive. It's a massive city. We're not big city people. It's super expensive. It rains. All the problems that a lot of people have with Vancouver. Calgary maybe, but kind of seemed like somewhere in between Vancouver and Calgary was the right place for us. And I was looking on Google for kind of towns that were big enough to have a bit of life so that they didn't feel like small kind of hillbilly towns, but not big cities. And Kelowna and Kamloops were really the only two that flashed up.
Yeah. So out we came for a visit, bit of a recce, and thought, oh yeah, this is good. So we started the process, and I actually can't remember now when we started it.
Must have been 19.
Sometime in summer 19, maybe.
Yeah, we got an immigration consultant, and
you start the long process of doing language tests and getting police checks and getting your credentials assessed and all those things. And unfortunately for us, we happened to do it. We were sort of midway through it once COVID kiboshed all the plans. So it took a lot longer than anticipated.
Well, also when we talked to our immigration consultant, he said, oh, you guys will sail in, no problem at all. You guys have got enough points. And that was probably true at the time with where the draws were.
The draws were around 450
CRS points.
460 CRS points around then, 2019, I think. And we were sitting at over 460, I think, or maybe around 450.
Yeah, it probably was good advice at the time, but it kind of quickly became not good, incorrect advice.
Yeah.
Because COVID hit, the draws stopped, we didn't have enough points, and it was a pretty stressful time because we were thinking, well, firstly, when's COVID going to end? Will they resume draws in 2 months or 2 years or 5 years? We had no idea what was going to happen. And it also kind of became clear that the express entry pool was still filling up and they weren't taking people off the top, and that meant the CRS score was going to get much higher. And so we embarked on the journey of increasing our CRS score. And Sharon, we are not worthy, put a lot of effort into really improving her French. And how many attempts did you have at a French test? 2, 3?
3, I think, in the end. I think I did one without realizing the significance of doing a French test. I think, as I said on one of our videos, we were under the impression that, if you do a second language test, whatever points you get is a bonus. So, go for it. And I thought, and I didn't really do a huge amount of revision, just went and did this language test and got reasonable points, got like decent points. But then realized this magic number that if you get above CLB level 7 across all speaking, listening, reading, writing, you suddenly go from an extra, I think, 10 points, 12 points or something, to an extra 30 or something incredible. So if you're sitting at 450 and there's 20,000 people ahead of you, and suddenly you leap to 480 or 487 or something, I think we leapt to, you suddenly go, we suddenly went right to the top of the pile. But it was a long process. We had to put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it.
I remember the first test result came back, and you got CLB level 6 on one.
I think I got level CLB 7 on all 3 of them, and then 6 on one of them.
You got an 8 somewhere.
Yeah,
it was crushing. I also remember we were living in Austria at the time, and the fan belt let go. When you were driving to the test one time, you somehow managed to get there with a rental car, but I think you were so fried, you just missed out on the mark we needed. But anyway, so Sharon, it's all down to Sharon. She deserves all the credit. She did the French, and she got us the CRS points. And then the Canadian government did it's kind of a random draw, wasn't it, from the express entry pool, just kind of out of nowhere in the middle of 2020. And we got drawn.
When it resumed in July 20.
And we wouldn't have been anywhere near it without that French test.
And we wouldn't be anywhere near it now.
No, we wouldn't. And we got drawn, and they said the processing time at the time was 6 months. So I think we got drawn in August 2020, and we were living in Austria at the time. And we thought, well, we'll go home, UK. We'll go to the UK. We'll see our family for kind of 6 weeks. We'll rent a car and we'll drive around and see everyone we need to see. And then we'll go live in Canada in the February. So that would have been February 2021.
Which would have been the 6 months.
Would have been the 6 months. So we'd have got the ITA in August. We'd have got the confirmation of permanent residence in February. We thought, okay, great. worst comes to the worst, we can turn up in Canada in February. You get 6 months on a visitor visa. So even if we get there and our PR hasn't arrived, we can just go in as visitors and we'll just wait a month, 3 months at the worst, and we'll get our PR. But of course, COVID came back, as we all know. And in 2021, the border was pretty much closed. So we ended up kind of nomadically wandering around the UK for 3 months.
More. 4, almost 5 months, I think.
Felt like 4 years nomadically wandering around the UK in winter in COVID lockdown. And still hadn't arrived. And we thought, well, the Canadian border's still not open, but we want to do something interesting with our summer. So we went and lived on the island of Gozo, which is part of Malta, for the rest of that summer. And then we eventually came to Canada in September 2021. The key point is that we still didn't have the PR and we came in on visitor visas.
Luckily we were in a very fortunate position in that we could work remotely.
So yeah, this is worth pointing out.
Wherever we went, we did have the ability to move around because we were able to work remotely. So we could luckily work in the UK for a few months, move to an island called Gozo for a few months, and then we could come to Canada. We didn't need work permits. We didn't need legal status to come here. We could just come here as visitors, and which is probably worth knowing for people. If you are able to work remotely, you can just come to Canada as a visitor for 6 months, and you can work as long as you are not being paid in Canada. As long as you're not being paid by a Canadian company, you can come and live in. You can come as a visitor to Canada, as long as you can prove. You need to provide proof of funds, provide that you're able to support yourself by showing bank statements. And it depends which country you're from. We have passports from a visa exempt country, so we don't have to provide visitor. We don't have to have visitor visas, which takes a long time, and you have to apply for it. So we can come into Canada on a electronic travel authorization, or ETA, which means that at the border there's not a lot of questioning. Like we when we came to the border, when we first arrived, we had all sorts of proof. We had a dossier of proof. We had return flights booked to show that we weren't planning on staying forever, because overstaying your welcome is a huge reason why you might not be allowed into Canada.
What happened to those return flights? Did we just not take them?
We just didn't take them. No.
Did we get any money back? I can't remember.
Okay. But if you come to the border and the Canadian border officers deem that they don't think that you are going to return home, then they're not going to let you in. But if you can prove and say, look, I've got a return flight, I've got enough money to support myself for these 6 months, then there's no reason why they shouldn't let you in. Although the ultimate decision is, the final decision is ultimately up to them. But for us, we didn't have any trouble. We were able to come in, we were able to work remotely. And as Charlie was saying, we had this belief that, well, we've got 6 months here as visitors. Our PR will come in 6 months. We've already been waiting a year. This will be fine. And it didn't.
No, and we had to ask for an extension to our visitor visa. By now, we'd been in Canada 6 months. We kind of felt like we lived here. The kids were in daycare, and we had friends and a life. And obviously, it's getting pretty stressful, because you're thinking, well, we might just have to leave and come back when the PR arrives. So we were getting pretty stressed. But we asked for an extension on our visitor visa, and until you get an answer, you're on, is it implied status or implied? Yeah, cool. Implied status. So you can stay on your previous status. So we were visitors until they make a decision. And we kind of played on the fact that, well, not played on it. We finally got something good out of the IRCC having these enormous delays, which was they didn't get round to processing our visitor visa for months. And we were kind of waiting day by day in case they emailed us and says, hey, bad news, you've got to leave. We've had a look. Your visitor visa's up. And it was pretty stressful. Yeah, it was pretty stressful, not going to lie. But then the PR arrived, and it was such a good day. And I did something I've always wanted to do. I bought a bottle of champagne, I popped the cork, and I sprayed it everywhere. I've always wanted to do that. And we finally had a reason to do it. And we got the PR. And we moved pretty quickly. We kind of had everything in place by then.
Somebody's just asked a question. Somebody wants to know, how long did it take us from start to finish until our PR came?
Where on earth are you reading this?
Just on the side here.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody's just asked, how long did it take? Now, good question. Should have taken 6 months, so they said. But I think overall, from the day we got our ITA, our invitation to apply, from the day we got drawn to the day we got our PR, I think it was 21 months.
Maybe 22. Yeah, because it's August 20 to June 22. We get it in June. Anyway, it was a long time.
I think it was 21 or 22 months. So 6 months, 22 months. It's really, really difficult. And one of the things we've said, just in response to that question, one of the things we've said in some of the videos is that recently the IRCC has made, like, following the end of COVID and that kind of thing, they've reinstated accurate processing times on their website, which is a huge difference. It's a huge difference because I can't tell you how many hours, especially I, just spent day in, day out looking at, is there any news? When is the Canadian border going to open? What's the current processing time? And it just said 6 months. It just said 6 months for about 2 years. Processing time for express entry is 6 months. And we were there going, well, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months. So it's not 6 months, is it? But there's nothing. You can't contact them. You can't call them. You can't do anything. Nobody responds to anything. And now, although it's very frustrating, the last time I checked, I think the current processing time for express entry applications was something, what was it last time we looked? Over 20 months.
Yeah. But it's fine. I mean, it's not fine.
But it's good because
it gives you,
at least you know. If we had known that it was going to be 24 months, for example, we would have planned our lives accordingly. But if you think it's going to be 6 months and then it turns into 8 months and 9 months and 12 months and 14 months, you're in complete limbo, and I know there's been tens of thousands of people in this position over the last few years, and my heart goes out to you because we've been there too. But especially when you've quit your job, you've sold your house, you've taken your children out of school because you think you're going to be in Canada and you're not. And I can see the frustration a lot of people have had. So yeah, in response to that, it took us just under 2 years. So it will happen. It will happen.
Yeah, and we made it. We got the PR, and we'd already been to see a mortgage advisor. We'd already been to see an accountant to make sure we'd have all our tax. So honestly, but when the PR came, we just went bang, 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 got all our admin done. Sharon, I feel like I didn't really contribute anything to this process, but
what did I do?
You got a job at the key moment. Sharon got a job at the key moment, so our potential mortgage increased just at the right time with perfect timing. The housing market took a little bit of a dip, and the most amazing house with the big lake view in Kelowna, 4-bedroom house, a third of an acre, all the things we kind of dreamed about but never thought we'd have, we actually managed to get. It's even got a little studio, although it wasn't a studio when we bought it, of course. And we got super lucky, and we just managed to buy the house of our dreams at just the right moment. And
I think some of it is to do with luck, but I would say, to anybody who's listening or watching this, I think preparation is key, because although we had no idea whether our permanent residence was coming in the next day or if it was going to be another year, we thought, well, when it does come, we want to be ready. So we got everything ready. We contacted a mortgage broker. We got everything lined up. We had our applications for social insurance numbers and everything all ready to go. So the day we got that permanent residence, we just said, it's like we pressed the start button, because we thought to ourselves, well, if you get that permanent residence and then say, oh, what do we do now? Then you're just delaying your life even more. So if you've got everything ready, like preparation really is key in that sense, that, and I don't know, you feel prepared, you feel ready, and you feel like you're in control for the first time in years, literally years, where we're just twiddling our thumbs and waiting and going, this is out of our control. We're just waiting for the IRCC to draw us, and then they finally did. And once we got that permanent residency, we said, right, now it's on us.
Yeah, I think within 10 weeks, we bought a house, got social and health insurance, got reduced childcare costs, which is what you get once you're a permanent resident, got driving licenses, got my accountant going. So we're Canadian taxpayers and working. Sharon got a job. This was all in like 10 weeks, but as Sharon said, it's because we were prepared.
Yeah.
And now, I guess the end of the story is that we're here. And how does it compare to your expectations of living in Canada?
Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. We've lived in a few different places. We grew up in the UK, of course. We lived in France. We lived in Austria for several years. And now we live in Canada. So I think we can probably say this is certainly the fourth country we've spent like several years in, like rather than a few months. And it's a wonderful country. We've seen none of it so far. We've seen a tiny scratch on the surface of Canada, but we haven't even spent any time in big cities yet. But Kelowna, even just Kelowna, it's, how big is it? 170,000?
Something like that. Yeah.
170,000. It's a pretty small place by city standards, but it's so multicultural. Even here is so multicultural. So I can't imagine what Toronto's like, or Vancouver, or Calgary. Like, the diverse nature of people, and everybody's accepted, everybody is welcome. There's a welcoming feel to it, I think. Canada is that there's a huge diversity and people embrace the diversity.
And I think one thing you really feel here is that in a way no white people like us are from Canada. You know, the Indigenous people are from Canada, but everyone that looks and sounds like us.
They're mostly from the UK.
Yeah, they're mostly from our next door neighbours are from Liverpool.
Most people you meet here have got a British parent or a British grandparent, or an Irish grandparent, or so they've got a British or an Irish somewhere. It's a very strong heritage here. So
I mean, at the very least, pretty much everyone can trace their heritage back to Europe in some form. So you don't feel like an outsider, and it's very much live and let live, which I really appreciate. And it's massively exceeded my expectations of living here, and feeling pretty damn good about the whole thing right now.
It feels pretty desperate at times during the whole immigration journey, when you think, oh, I've got to do language tests, and it's stressful, especially if your language is not English or French first language. I understand how stressful it is to do a language test when it's not your first language, and you're desperately trying to get points. But from our experience, you really can look back and say, oh, it was worth it. It was at times awful. Hopefully you guys won't have to do it through a global pandemic again.
We had some pretty low points, didn't we? But we got there in the end.
When we never thought it was going to happen, and we were wondering why we were spending so much money on. We've talked about the costs involved in moving to Canada, and it's massive. You are probably looking at tens of thousands of dollars once you paid for everything. You've shipped your belongings, and maybe you've bought a car, and you've paid for insurance, and all that kind of stuff. It's tens of thousands of dollars, but it's not all in one lump sum. Nobody's going to say to you, right, do you want to move to Canada? Give us $30,000. It's drip fed over time. It's $400 for this and $150 for that, and so it is an expensive process. But if it's really what you want to do, if you're invested in it, then honestly, I don't think you're going to be disappointed.
No. And on that note, are we done? Great. Thank you, everyone who watched, and thank you for the question. Next time I will keep Twitter open so I can actually see it instead of Sharon the eagle eye spotting it. And if you'd like us to do another live stream, or if you've got any more questions, of course, leave them below, and we'll see you on Sunday for another non-live video. And here is to the next 100 videos. Thanks to everyone who's tuned into this, and thank you to everyone who's liked and subscribed and commented on our videos, even the people that complain about our pronunciation.
Yeah, thank you for all the comments. It's really fun to read all the comments. We do try our absolute best. We don't know the answers to everything, but we do try our absolute best to answer the comments. And it's really nice to know that you're watching and you're enjoying what we're saying. We're not experts by any means, but we've done it. So
Expert.
But we've done it, we've lived it, we've done the tests, we've done all the forms and everything you need to do. So we're not experts, but we
live in the same zip
we've
code as experts,
experienced
yeah.
it. So
We
feel
kinda know what
free
we're
to
talking about.
ask questions, and thank you for your comments. We really appreciate them, and yeah, glad to hear you're enjoying it.
Thanks,
We'll
guys.
see you on Sunday.
See you Sunday.